Hello, everybody. So just in reflection with regards to the announcement that was made yesterday by President Ramaphosa, which is that South Africa will go into a 21-day lockdown starting midnight on the 26th of March 2020. I just wanted to highlight a few things from what the president was saying, because of course this is a unique situation that none of us have ever experienced before. In fact, this is the first time that human beings are being told that they need to stay at home and that there's something outside of their homes that has the potential to make them very ill. And so the need for a lockdown, I think, needs to be highlighted at this stage. And the reason for why we need to be going into lockdown is there's multiple reasons why. But if you think about it in this way, that we are fighting against an unseen enemy. We cannot determine who has infection and who does not have COVID-19 infection just by looking at people, for example. The only way to see this enemy is to test people for the virus, bearing in mind that there are a few people who are going to be completely asymptomatic, and those people are actually known as super spreaders, meaning that they can transmit the virus to other people but not actually have symptoms themselves. And so because of the fact that not everybody who has symptoms at this stage is undergoing testing, also because there are people who may be positive with this infection that have absolutely no symptoms, and because as human beings we're so different. There are people who are, to them, this isn't the apocalypse, it's the end of the world, and they're scrubbing their hands until their skin is actually coming off. And then you get other people who are just completely unaware about the gravity of the situation. So you can see that there's no consistency to the way that we have responded to this infection. And so because of those reasons, it becomes necessary to take drastic measures in order to prevent what the president said, what the president called an enormous human health catastrophe. And that is not an exaggeration, based on what the rest of the world is experiencing, but also based on how rapidly the disease is spreading within South Africa. Bear in mind that the numbers of cases that we are detecting at the moment is increasing. That is as a result of spread of the infection, but also the fact that we're doing more tests. So of course, the more people you test, the more positive test results you are going to get. And so because we are not doing enough tests in the world, not just specifically in South Africa, it is incredibly difficult to be able to isolate only the people who should be isolated. And then again, coming back to the fact that there are people who should be isolated but have no symptoms. So those people are not going to test anyway. And so the reason for the lockdown is obviously to take us away from each other so that we are reducing the spread of this disease, number one, but also that we're reducing the rate at which the disease is spreading. The president mentioned in his address about preventing overwhelming the healthcare system. Of course, if you have huge amounts of people testing positive at one time, then because the healthcare system is going to be very quickly inundated with patients, we are not going to have the capacity to be able to help everyone. And so that's what's referred to as flattening the curve, which is to reduce the amount of patients that are requiring emergency medical treatment in facilities, lengthening the time period so that the healthcare system does not become overwhelmed. I just wanted to highlight another thing. The president mentioned the fact that we have high-risk populations in this country, and that when he did his address last week Sunday, There were about 150,000 cases worldwide. Yesterday, when he made his announcement, there were over 340,000 cases worldwide. And that number is rapidly climbing. But what we definitely know is that high-risk population groups, people with underlying chronic medical conditions, the elderly, these people are going to be at the highest risk. And he mentioned a few key populations: people with HIV, people with TB, but also people with underlying chronic medical conditions such as diabetes and heart disease. He also mentioned the impoverished among us who don't have the ability to access the sanitation in some cases and the accommodation facilities that are required for isolation, which is why the government is working hard to arrange for shelter for those people who do not have homes. And then he also mentioned the malnourished among us. Of course, there is a big population of South African people who are struggling to meet their nutritional requirements, and those people are also going to be at risk. And so while this is a drastic course of action, it is absolutely necessary at this time. And I just want to salute the leadership of this country that have made this bold decision, and at the same time want to encourage us to say that this is not going to be the story forever. It's not an indefinite situation, but at the same time, at this moment, what is required is for us to act in the interest of all South Africans, and in fact all human beings, to be able to reduce the spread of this disease so that we can beat COVID-19. So in light of what the president announced, I encourage you all to take care of yourselves. Please, panic buying, I know, is probably inevitable as people are now rushing to the stores to get supplies. Remember, supplies are not going to run out. However, it is urgent and vitally important for each and every South African to play their part. And so I wish you all the best. Please take care of yourselves and stay home.